as they head to the line. As soon as they touch this line, the lights will go out, and off they go. The Porsche makes his way down. Webb has a look down the inside there. Jake's to the outside, using the outside of the Audi there, and Webb slotting into second position, running all the way to the outside there. What will happen as they make their way in? Oh, we've got an Audi at the back that looks like Abschmeyer. They're getting onto the dirt. Essa on the inside line. Jason goes around the outside through the Essa. Oh, they've made it through. So Jason gets contact from one of the cars there. That looks like Shedder gave him a bit of a nudge there, swings him around, and that is a disastrous end for the Mercedes-Benz as the rest of the field now tries to work their way through.
Great start by Jason. Went to the inside, went to the outside, put himself around there. We know you can go around the outside. Got the line blocked off. Man, it looks like he just got spun around by Sherrod coming out of there, and that irritates me because
I think that was Sherrod there. I think that was Sherrod.
It was the black Audi that just turned around there. But the bit that irritates me from a racing perspective, happy days for Zaire, is he's gapped it.
Yeah, I think the problem with that, I watched the little replay earlier on, was that the car actually got hit by one. Most of the other guys did well to avoid, but the Mercedes actually got hit further back. And that's on the exit of the corner there. He gets spun around, and most of the cars do well to avoid, but then, bang, the Lamborghini makes contact. Might have done him a bit of a favor there, spins him around, and off they go.
Yeah, but have a look. He's touching him. So he's touching him on the back left bumper, on a curve that is left-hander as you're coming on the power. So what is that going to do? It's going to over-rotate the car. So for me, that's avoidable contact. Yeah, it's a lot still going to happen with 42 minutes to go. I can't believe it's been 8 minutes of racing. There's been a lot of action already.
Oh, more action to come as Cody Sherrod makes contact with Jason Abschmeyer. And Cody putting in consistent lap times. He's got Ferrand right on his tail there in the other Porsche. Cody working his way up the field very nicely there. And now in contention.
Yeah, 3 laps.
He's not going to do it this time, and now he's getting himself into a battle with Bashir, which might not be the wisest move. He moves out the way. No, he doesn't.
No, he doesn't.
Is he slowing down? Is he slowing down? That was uncharacteristic. Yeah, looks like he's slowing down quite a bit there. That was a very uncharacteristic move from Jordan. Absolute class there. I mean, these things do happen. The racing. Oh, somebody runs wide there. That's one of the Audis. As he gets that's Cody. Yeah, that's Cody. As we look on as his younger brother, the younger of the brothers, getting massive pressure from Charles Wilkin. Now, Charles Wilkin looks like a man on a mission. Oh, the Audi cuts across the curb there, makes a mistake. I don't think there was any contact there. He just made a silly mistake.
Because of whatever parameters are set up in the game, you know, you've got to be, great move, Morgan.
Beautiful move there.
On Marcus Steyn. Well done. On cue, as we're on board with you. He's obviously setting that up, and he's brought Jason along with him. So, shame, poor Marcus, as I'm raving about how well he's doing, just went and lost 2 places. And that happens so often here at Monza. But, and running wide, Jason, whoa.
Marcus doing well to avoid. Marcus doing very well to avoid there. Jason Webb keeping the car on the black stuff, and Morgan McCall, that was really a picture-perfect overtaking, wasn't it?
That was brilliant. That was so nicely done. This is where it starts getting difficult because the guys that all have racecraft, they're all putting together consistently good laps. So you've just got to keep the pressure on. Look at that curb. So, he's nudged him.
Was that a nudge?
Yeah.
He's waiting for him. Yeah, so it must have been a nudge or not. Okay.
That definitely looked like a nudge because it felt like we were on his nose cam. So I don't think you're going to get that proper feeling. He's going to give the position back for sure. So So well done, Jason. Let him back past.
Cody, side by side. Cody hugs the inside, Wesley on the outside. Wesley's got the run out the corner, but the looks of things, they touch side by side now, running up to the left-hand S's. Cody's got the line, but Wesley does seem to have the pace as they make their way around that long right-hander. And will the Porsche go defensive as they go into the second S's here? The Audi has another look down the inside, letting him know that he's there. And well done to Wesley Ferrand there. Unbelievable stuff. The Audi has another look there. And wow. The racing continues there, guys. The racing continues.
It's so frustrating when a guy just he doesn't choose. He just puts himself in the middle. You know, Wesley didn't get to any line. He just parked his car in the middle. And like that for me is also annoying. I'd love to just give him a little tap just so he knows before the breaking point. That is Jordan on a massive charge. But have a look. He's completely offline. Okay,
mistake there. Oh, no, McCall.
No, you see,
Again.
no, that's naughty. And Jordan goes and picks up the pieces. That corner, Jason Webb is going to absolutely hate. Now, Morgan needs to do the right thing and give that position back and give it back fast. Otherwise, that's a penalty for sure. Because that's just, you outbreak yourself, you make a mistake through the chicane, you still try and hold on to that chicane, you end up taking out the driver in front of you. And that's what I love with the setup at Monza. It can be a bit follow my leader, but there's always opportunities.
Well, it certainly is follow my leader, but the pressure that the guys have to withstand is constant. It's not a case of there's always a guy trying to dive bomb you or always a bunch of overtakes happening. But look at this. We've seen these guys nose to tail, line of stern for the last 10 laps. You know, every lap after lap after lap, they've got to be concerned about somebody trying to make a move. As McCall makes a move easy down the inside, makes it look easy. Definitely damage on the Mercedes. The Mercedes, the faster car, at least supposed to be.
Looks like you made a bit of a wrong move. I don't know why I'd want to try and go around the outside, but put your car there and you've got it done. I don't. That's perfect.
Oh my goodness. Drama continues and one of the Audis comes back here. That's Jordan, and Jordan overtakes the Ferrari. Jordan, the beneficiary of that little incident there.
I'm sorry. So that for me is a massive penalty to Wesley Ferrand because he missed the chicane.
No nonsense being taken from Marius over here, and I'm sure no nonsense getting taken from Jonathan. But the man that is the man of the moment, that is Zahir Issa across the line. 28 laps done and dusted. First place goes to Zahir Issa again, and the cool, calm, and collected Bashir Jadwat gets second. But the man of the moment for me, Bruno Kadley in third place, putting a Mercedes on the podium for the first time. Jason Abschmer happy to get fourth. Charles Wilkin in fifth position. What's going on here? This is the battle for ninth place over here. Oh!
That is just so silly. I mean, I'm glad he ended up where he ended up because putting his nose involved in another instance.
Let me into my zone. Let me into my zone. Let me into my zone. Please don't let me in. Don't play that. Say you got them, say that. Money me $2. Selling you now, this payback. So I say that. Ask them now, we'll say that. I've been going to the top and I got what they not, so I know that they hate that. But I'm on that. All these lanes gonna zone out. And all these lanes gonna tell you what I did and they twist and they worse till I fall out. But I know that, so I keep what I'm doing cause I own that. And I stay in the lab and I kill everything, but I don't ever move in my car. So I'm finally back in my home. I'm working, I saw no other that's why I had me a drum. Put hands to my soul, now I just need to dance that song. All in, can't beat me up cause I'm back in my zone now. Having a great strap, an almost banging wheel. Cause I'm back in my zone now.
Don't get greedy, come on. Let's go, settle down.
Yes, folks, your eyes do not deceive you. It is raining out there in Germany. You join us for round 6 of the Nürburgring race here in Germany. Yes, of course, the ATK Pro Series. And This event is brought to you by Assetto Corsa, Kyalami 9 Hour, and of course Motorsport South Africa, and our sponsors AMD, Elgato, and Corsair. Now, today's schedule, we've just seen the Pro-Am race, and what an exciting race. And surprisingly, the guys kept it quite neat in these very, very tricky rainy conditions. Will the pro drivers be able to do the same? Well, we are about to find out in the next couple of minutes. The pro drivers will be heading onto the track for their qualifying session to see which one of the 33 drivers is going to take away more points for the ATK Pro Series Championship. The racing starts in a couple of minutes, and yesterday the drivers were split up into 2 divisions. The fastest 33 made it to the Pro Series, and now they have to qualify for this next race. Well, I tell you what, guys, that are pros are some of the people that join me today in the booth. Of course, we got Marius Roberts, our man in Johannesburg. Marius, how are you doing today?
Well, just be careful when you say pros, because we've got Tasman Pepper here as well. So I mean, you don't want to be too liberal with that term, pros. Hello,
You're shots fired already so early in the game. How's it, guys? How's it going?
Good. Are you good?
I'm good. Are you still in Joburg?
Yeah, I saw your dad. Sorry, we're digressing. I saw your dad. I had a chat to him about disciplining you, so things should be back to normal by Monday night.
Oh, excellent. Can't wait.
Taz, listen, you missed an epic race in really tricky conditions. I mean, I hear Jonathan, you can be so proud. I know you gave the guys the riot act in that driver's briefing, and they delivered what we thought would be mayhem into turn 1. Nothing. There's literally, Taz, at this point, no incidents is really discussed for Monday. Brilliant racing, Jonathan.
Oh, so we have to hope for incidents, otherwise we've got no stream tomorrow. Oh, boy.
Remember, we're talking about weather, because we're going to start sowing the seed now. It could be raining the next 6 rounds.
Definitely.
Well, the rain...
Well, they seem to be driving better in rainy conditions, so maybe we should keep it, apparently, eh?
Yeah, I think that lack of grip causes the drivers to just have a slight apprehension on being too aggressive on attempts at overtakes. So we're seeing a lot more of the drivers setting up the driver ahead to make an overtake, and Nürburgring is offering some good overtaking opportunities with the guys getting good runs onto the straight. So yeah, great race.
It's a mix of old and new, this circuit. You've got the old school sort of sweeps, the old school overtaking spots. Marius, you were mentioning a couple of spots on the circuit that you particularly like and can really spice things up today.
Yeah, I just think, I mean, you've got a really technical first couple of sections, like the first half of the track, and then it obviously opens up and it's a bit more high speed and committed. But what I love, it is also an old circuit layout. So the curbs that you do have are sloped, they're short, and you've got grass. So any mistake, any late braking, any running wide, you pay the ultimate price because you've got no grip. There's no Paul Ricard shopping tarmac area to play in. You're on the grass and you're going to spin. And obviously in wet conditions like this now, that is not where you want to be. So for me, I love circuits like this. We know that turn 1 we mentioned earlier is a tricky turn in the dry because you've got that little kink to the right just before, basically as you're hitting the brake marker, and then quite a hectic dip on the apex, whereas if you aim for that, you're going to find yourself going airborne, losing some positions. And we were so surprised how well the guys did that. But I love the layout of the circuit. It's got the Schumacher S's, and Schumacher would have reveled in conditions like this. This is where he made his name.
Indeed. I mean, those S's are just so scary, but it might not look so wet from the visuals, but soon we'll get a look and see what the drivers have to contend with. And the Schumacher S is one of those places where I thought it would catch out more people, but the drivers, as you say, Jonathan, the drivers are really doing well today to behave themselves. But are the pro drivers going to be the naughty kids in the bunch today? I hope you gave them a bit of a talking to in that drivers briefing earlier on.
I did, and I always give the pro-am guys a good reputation standing with the pro guys, and I explain how well they did, and that pro have big shoes to fill. And I think there's a few feisty drivers in pro, so I think we're going to see a bit of chances taken. Yeah. And I'm really hoping that we don't, but in the same breath, these guys do need to be, racers. They do need to be aggressive to be competitive. But what's really going to set the drivers apart is their ability to find that line between, making a silly attempt that doesn't exist and, playing the bigger game, playing the long race. It is a long race. There is plenty of time. They need to keep their tires good, and they need to survive lap 1.
Well, that's exactly it. Surviving the first couple of laps, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, in conditions like this, it's obviously very difficult for all the drivers. It's really slippery and stuff. So if you think about your overtaking maneuver, and when you do make an overtaking maneuver, you have more of a chance to pull away and to get onto the next guy in front of you. So if you're doing stupid things, you end up spinning, or you end up making mistakes that you could have avoided. So it's more about using your brain and using the time that you have. It's a long race, so rather make the move stick than regret the move that if you sort of do it too quickly.
But Jonathan, I know what. Sorry, jumping there, Jonathan. I know where you're going with this. We kind of expect the pros to take more chances, to push the margins. I think the Pro-Am guys did that. They were holding back, being particularly safe. But at the end of the day, as we spoke about earlier, when you get into conditions like wet or dry, you had a race, you've got to be aggressive, you want to win. It's about who can find the grip, who can be the most consistent, because as we spoke about, it's hard to find rhythm in conditions like this, because every lap things are ever changing and evolving. So, for me, it's about getting into that rhythm the soonest. But I expect to see the guys a lot more aggressive in terms of wanting to go for their moves, because they are the pros. I mean, that's what they had to do.
Yeah, I expect the same thing. And I mean, I'm looking at the guys driving now in practice, and we thought the Pro-Am guys were fast. I mean, we're sitting at a 2:02 currently in free practice.
Yeah, 2:02 is one of the faster times. But it's totally possible, though. There's a few guys in the front that can do 2:02s, but you know what it's like in the rain. Can they do 2:02s for 50 minutes? You make one mistake, you've lost 30 seconds.
I don't think that's feasible at all, especially, I mean, even in the previous race, they were mentioning about how tires, there's a slight dry line forming in this amount of rain that we have. And on that dry line, the tires are actually a bit more skittish and a bit less predictable. Wow. So I think if they're pushing hard, I don't think their tires are going to survive long.
So here's a technical question from a gaming perspective. Does this, what we're running now, is it running in sequence? So in other words, does it remember that there was just a 50-minute race and we are now running the next race 15 minutes later? Or is it reset as a complete new race, new conditions?
Yeah, it's just out of the fact that we have a different entry list of drivers. It is a reset of the previous conditions.
Because that's important, because if you think on a race day at Tasman, you get quite excited because there's been a race, the track's dried out a little bit because there's been a 50-minute race. So that's not even something to consider now. So these guys are going to get into the same conditions the Pro-Am guys got. There's no dry line.
But the footage we're seeing right now going over the track, I don't know if this is actual footage of current time, but there is quite a dry line that's forming already.
Yeah, but what's weird is that a lot of the drivers are saying that the dry line doesn't actually feel that good on these wet tires. So the slick tires certainly won't work at the moment. So it's going to be a case of, I don't know, the guys would have had to practice this in the week to make sure that they know exactly what's going on. As we look at the times from seeding, Zahir Essa at the top spot as usual. Jordan Shirat there.
Are those the correct seating times?
Yes, they are.
Yeah. Okay, yes, just because I know we had an issue earlier. I was going, geez, like the guys were doing 45. And like, oh my word. But that is quick. But yesterday's conditions were very, very different to today. So, you're adding 10 seconds to the time,
Indeed. And these guys, the 52s in front there, my question is, are the top 6 guys who did 52s going to be able to maintain that? And the Porsches are fast in these conditions. I've driven a bunch of cars and test driven a bunch, and the Porsches are certainly fast, but they're not easy. And we always say that. But in this situation here, it takes one curb, one green strip, and you've got your car going backwards towards the scenery. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
I think it's more about getting in a rhythm. I mean, if you're not in a fight, you can get in a comfortable rhythm, make sure you brake at the same place, make sure you turn in the same place, and you're not really going to unsettle yourself too much. But if you're in a race, it's a complete different story. I mean, you're going to have to brake that little bit later. You're going to have to push the limits going into a certain corner to try and get the guy into the next corner. So those in front are going to be better off and will be able to do consistent times. But, I mean, those in a race, you're going to see seconds from one lap to the next.
Yeah, what we saw in Pro-Am, which I thought was quite interesting, was the driver in front has to feel the conditions. So we saw a couple errors when drivers get put into an open air scenario, but as soon as he makes a mistake and slots in behind another guy, he found his rhythm again very quickly because he makes the guy ahead of him do all the hard work.
No, he's the brake marker.
Yeah, exactly that. And yeah, so I've done that before, sim racing, and you make the guy ahead of you do all the work, and then you take him at the end and win the race. It's freaking cool.
Well, Essa so far the top man in the points position, the top man in seeding. Can he be the top man in qualifying? The pressure must be insane for him, specifically being the guy that's just been dominating lately. Can he dominate in the rain as well?
Yeah, well, I think Zia is a really smooth driver, so I think if he gets away at the start, or we don't even know where he qualifies just yet, but I mean, if he gets away at the start and he can get in his rhythm straight away, I don't see there being any issue with him not winning the race. We know he's really consistent lap after lap, so I think it's just finding that rhythm in the rain and doing it lap after lap. But, Jordan's quick and he's in an Audi, and I know the Audis are really fast in the rain, so I think he might have a little bit of a challenge on his hands.
Well, Tasman, I want to speak to you some more later on about finding that rhythm and really putting down driving in the rain to a science, because there's a science to it, there are rules to it, but we'll talk about that later on, right after these breaks, and we'll see you guys for qualifying in the next couple of minutes. As you can see, that's what it looks like out there, folks. Jason Webb in the Mercedes-Benz, one of the very tricky cars to drive around here. But Jason, of course, a 4-time South African national drift champion, is no stranger to going fast. And I'd love to get a look, a bird's eye view from inside this car to see how he's working this car, because he said he's a man on a mission. He wants to make sure he gets the best possible qualifying position here today. The rain looking pretty bad, but not that bad. And I spoke to him about the setup of this car. He's actually set this car up as a dry setup, so it's quite tight. So he's trying to get the most speed out of it. He hasn't softened it up that much. So there is a lot of oversteer on this car, and I think we're going to see Jason working this car very hard in this qualifying and race later.
Ernest, you're saying that the conditions are bad, but not that bad. Are you joking?
Well, Jason just has a moment there. But the thing is, this is not the worst it gets, though. There's one setting higher than this where there's an actual storm happening, and
that's Noah. That's
the worst setting. That's where the comes out. Apocalypse setting. Yeah, this one is. You were saying, John?
One thing to keep in mind, I think the camera shots don't give it too. I mean, they make it look a bit worse than it actually is. Currently, we're sitting at about 40% rain, 40% wetness on the track, so it can get a lot worse.
Yeah, and as we now go on board with Jason Webb, we were saying earlier on the science of driving in the wet, and I was speaking to a bunch of the guys this week. There are rules to driving in the wet. Find your brake markers, note the puddles, note the collection points of the water, where the standing water is, and then, as you said offline earlier on, or just before this, find that rhythm, Tasman.
Yeah, I think it's all about finding a rhythm, but when you're in a qualifying setup or you're in practice, you're always testing those limits. So you're finding those breaking points, and eventually you get to a point where you completely outbrake yourself because you get more comfortable, and then there's just that one breaking point that just actually doesn't allow it. So I think it's finding where those limits are, but also not overdoing it or getting overconfident with it, because you start trusting the grip a lot and you start relying on it a lot, and then it bites you eventually. So I think it's just about picking the right lines. There's so many different lines in the rain. It's not like a dry setup where you have one line and that's the line you use. I mean, there's a lot of different corners where you'll go just around the outside because there's more grip around the outside and less grip on the inside. And some corners you'll have to ride the curbs. And so I think it's just about finding those points on track and being able to use them to your advantage.
I'm glad you brought that up, Taz. We were speaking about that in the Pro-Am race, is that, they had a long practice session, and in that it is about trying to find where the grip is, because the grip usually isn't on the racing line in wet conditions. So that's what makes some drivers really stand out, is their ability to get a feeling for where those grip levels are. So that's what makes these conditions so tricky. And then, like we said, no, it's fine in qualifying because you're sitting and pushing those margins. But, when you get into the race, all of that changes again, because then you're going door to door with people. So I think just from a driving perspective in wet conditions, it is such a mental battle for you, because you literally, every single corner is a fight, because you're constantly trying to find that fine margin of having grip and skidding off.
Well, earlier on we saw one of the Lexuses, which is one of the better cars in these conditions. That is Wezza Hampston. And he got up 7 positions in seeding today. So I'm keen to see how he does. He should be the fastest of the Lexus drivers as Jason Webb makes his way across the line. Let's see where he sits. Currently, we've got an Audi on the front row, and Jason slots into 5th position, 1.9 seconds behind Sherritt, moves down to 6th. And it's an Audi one at the moment, with Essa now in 3rd position as one of the Porsches comes sliding through the corner there. That's the Schumacher.
I don't know if he made that.
Oh,
I don't know if he made that.
That was a very aggressive move. You gotta love these camera angles that way.
No, but this is what we noticed. I mean, that Pro-Am round, remember how mixed up it was? It was like the British marks were loving the wet weather. And we were saying, wow, amazing. Like Porsche, I think the first Porsche was maybe in 10th or wherever it ended up being at the end. But, it's kind of back to normal again. But we know how fast the Audis are, good to drive in the rain, and they're showing that now. So Jordan's sitting on pole, but the rest of it is just Porsches. I mean, it's only Jason down there in 7th. In the Merc flying the flag. So it's business as usual for the Porsche guys. But what I'm interested about in this is that there are a lot of guys that are already fast in these Porsches. So I think we're going to have a super battle today.
Well, one of the fastest in a Porsche is Zahir Essa. He runs wide there, and he's making his way down the strip. He's trying to get that 1st position spot. Let's see where he goes. Nope, Zahir Essa gets pushed down to 4th for now. Bashir Jadwat, the ATK driver, in 3rd position there. Quade Claessen's his teammate in 2nd for the first time. Quade out qualifying his teammate there, with Jordan in 1st place in the Audi. Jason Webb now slipping down to 8th place, and the only other manufacturer, a Ferrari, Byron Walker, in 15th position. So Porsche really dominating today, but I think the Porsches are going to suffer in the race a little bit.
Can we welcome Junior to pros? He's obviously got his wheel and setup. They're not sharing.
Yes, fantastic. He got his pedal this week apparently, and
Junior so for the first time.
Yeah.
20th position at the moment. We cut to him now, the ATK Academy driver, and what that means is that he's basically in support from ATK and learning the ropes, and he's got lots of ropes to learn, but so much potential too. Just 12 years old is Junior McCall, the younger of the 2 McCall brothers, now in 20th position, but don't be fooled, 22nd now Don't be fooled. I think he's going to find some extra pace.
Now, Ernest, it's wet on the track and wet behind his ears. I mean, it's crazy. 12 years old. It's amazing. I'm just so stoked that he's obviously all set up now with ATK, and he's got his own full setup. So it must be quite interesting in the McCall house, because they probably are sitting side by side in their individual rigs or in separate rooms. What's going on? I'd love to see a little camera angle on that.
Well, there's Senior McCall, who refers to himself as their manager, and Junior runs wide there. Not too bad, manages to recover. Senior McCall, the dad of the two boys, and he's their manager, so he's making sure they toe the line, bring home the results, and try not to fight each other on and off the track, I'm sure. For the first time, as you say, Marius, they're racing against each other, so this should be interesting. Abschmeyer down in 16th position, looks like it, and Jason Webb now down in 15th. Just look at how close the grid has become. We've got between the top 20 guys, we've got 3.5 seconds. Between the top 18 guys, we've got 3 seconds. So what a split there. Bash gets a new time and goes into third.
Another driver to keep an eye on is Kadile, also in the Mercedes. It looks like the Mercedes actually has some decent pace here, considering how, dare I say, how much of a dog it is normally. But Kadile in free practice was right up there in the top 5, so I think someone to watch as well. Jason Webb has got some work to do to get his position back there.
But Jonathan, remember what we said though, balance of performance is out the window in conditions like this. So, teams that are dominant and fast, it's even playing fields in wet weather. So that's why you'll see those Mercs running really well here.
Well, Jordan now in the 201s in the Audi. It's the first time I think I've ever seen anybody do a 201, to be honest. I've heard the guys doing 202s, but 201 could be one of the fastest times we've seen this weekend. And certainly the fastest time we've seen today, by 0.7 of a second to the unstoppable force that is Zahir Essa in second position. Bashir Jadwat now down in third. And Bruno Kadile, my driver of the day for the last event, is in so sideways. I think the guy's actually sliding it through that corner. Look at that. Sideways through the corner is Bashir Jadwat on the absolute limit. And that's the kind of driving you got to do to get those lap times over here.
Look at Kadile and P4 there.
Yeah, but that's what we're talking about. When you get to the pro level, you're not going to see the pro-am guys that committed and going through there. So the level of car control with the pros is clearly evident. I mean, our director loves that camera angle. Remember, we had one of those in the pro-am race, and we were like, as the guy was spinning out, we thought, oh, that's the end of him. But I mean, it really is great, that eye in the sky, because you can see just like a minute and sideways are power sliding through those corners. It's amazing. It's unbelievable to watch.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, conditions like this, you need to, like I said, you've got to test the limits, but you also got to get heat in the tires. So the guys that are capable of getting it sideways and staying in control have, obviously, they're better off against the guys who are smoother and sometimes can't get the heat in their tires to benefit the grip as best as possible.
Taz, you've also got to, you've got to be the boss here. Because I think a lot of the times these conditions and the car can end up driving you, and in wet conditions you actually need to be quite aggressive and assertive in terms of taking control, and that's a confidence thing, knowing your limits and the cars, and then making sure that you are assertive in that way in your driving style.
Yeah, and I mean, I think Jordan Sherritt might have a bit of a, he might be above some of the other drivers for certainly this type of condition. He's come from karting. He knows those type of, I think karting teaches you a lot in the rain and where you can push and where you can't, versus being in a bigger car on a main circuit. So I think he might, as I say, he is still first. The guys are getting closer, but he's almost going to get to that limit a little bit faster than the other guys are going to, where the other guys are obviously testing it lap after lap and obviously pushing those boundaries a little bit more and more and more, where he's sort of just going for it, sort of finding it, and he's going to reach a point where he can't get any faster, but the guys are eventually going to close up to him.
Yeah, but 0.7 with 8 minutes to go, 0.7 literally of a gap between first and second is massive in conditions like this. I mean, you think in the dry we were going, wow, Zahir is 0.5 or 0.6 ahead, which is quick in the dry. But I think in the wet, that's a standout quality time at this stage.
Well, Wesley Hampson, definitely one of the guys to look. I don't think he's going to qualify well, but that Lexus does really well in wet conditions, and he does very well under these conditions, being quite consistent. So I'm interested to see what he does. He will probably be one of the faster Lexus at the moment. He's behind King, I'm keen to see with 7.5 minutes left to go. You were saying earlier on that Jordan's able to find that pace early, but there's not much time for the other guys left to catch up. They've got 7 minutes now, and with a lap taking 2 minutes and 2 seconds, that just means 3 laps or so of on the limit driving for them to try and find that time.
Yeah, I also think the Audi is going to be above the Porsches at this race, especially in these conditions. I mean, the Audi, I know in real life, handles really well, and majority of the time they dominate in the rain. So I think the other guys are going to have a struggle, as well as, you know, fighting against someone who's had experience in real life in these conditions, or a lot more than everyone else.
Says, you're not surprising for me, though. I mean, you talk about people with real race experience. Look at Charles Wilkin. I mean, down in 28th. And I think this, I'm gonna say now, is where the challenge is for real drivers with real track experience in conditions like this, who might not spend as much time on sim, is in the wet is where you need to feel the bump. You know, and with your sim rigs being bolted to the ground, you don't get that feeling at all. So you're only going with what your eyes see. So I think for a guy that comes with massive real racing experience, you're going to struggle to get your head around wet conditions in a simulator.
Yeah, like you also, like you're saying, you can't feel it as best as you can in a race car. So you can't feel when the car is sliding until it's a little bit too late that you can't catch it again.
Someone's in the wall there, and I was expecting Charles to do much better, to be honest with you. I've driven a couple of laps in the wet with this game, and it feels very realistic compared to real wet weather driving, and I really thought Charles would perform much better today, specifically that this could be the day where he shines more than he has in the past. It's surprising to me that he's so far down.
Well, I mean, like I was saying to you guys when we were behind the scenes, it's kind of one of those things where one day you're super fast in the wet, and the very next day you absolutely nowhere. So it's kind of it's a hit and miss with me. I know my dad loses his mind with me all the time when it comes to these conditions. It's like one day I'm super fast, and the next day I'm like absolutely nowhere. So I think, you know, like I said, it's a bit of a hit and miss, and I think maybe Charles struggling a little bit today in these conditions.
Well, I know one thing that slowed me down in the wet was crashing, and I think
it's not funny that it's only quite a quick slowdown.
yeah. But what happened is that I was very fast in the rain before I had a big accident, and then the next race where it rained, I then had to find that pace again and find, you know, the cojones effectively, because once that confidence goes away, you make a mistake, and then the confidence is gone. The confidence that you built up. And we see now for the first time, Zahir Issa on the back foot, 7/10 of a second down in third position. He was flying off the track earlier on in practice a couple of times, pushing very, very hard. And now he's more than likely thinking to himself, where am I going to find that time? 7/10 of a second to gain. Will he be happy with third place? Third place is not the place he would want to be starting going into this race.
Great for us from a championship perspective, right? Because that's what we want to see. And I said to you, halfway through, we've got 12 rounds, this is round 6, and there's not much gap. And at the end of this, what we want to see, because a wet race like this can really mess up the leaderboard. And you might find guys that have had it all their own way in dry conditions suddenly having one bad result. And suddenly, Zahir's got an 11-point lead right now. He's in second position, good qualifying run there, 0.5. But, you know, things could change quite dramatically for him if he has a bad race here. So we saw it in the Pro-Am race. I mean, Kleb, who's been mid-pack in Pro-Am, suddenly dominating. So, you know, I was hoping to see a couple of new names rise to the top, but I think you're going to have less and less of that with the pros. These are the best of the best, and our top 6 are kind of the usual suspects.
Yeah, indeed. And speaking of top 6, Essa, as you said earlier on, into second position, just Pipping, Bashir, Jadwa, the three of them in a class of their own at the moment, 0.6 of a second apart. And the front row of the grid is what you want. So Issa, I'm sure, for now is happy because he's on the front row, clear in front of him, and none of that annoying spray to have to deal with going into the first corner. Oh my goodness, Leslie goes from 7th to 4th position. Leslie Oliphant, who's been fast all week in practice, now finally getting that pace. 1 second down. He's in the pits right now, but up into 4th position from 7th place. Well done to him, with Kadile getting pushed down to 5th in the first of the Mercedes-Benz. Well done to him. I mean, top 5 in the Merc. Seriously good stuff.
Okay, so Sherrod definitely, I would say, has got a bit of a point to prove this week after his turn 1 of Monza last week. So I think that, you know, he's got a point to prove, and it's very difficult to not put money on him. But who have you guys got money on for this race?
It's
I
difficult.
think Jordan might be alright. I think if
so.
he keeps his head cool and he gets out front, puts his head down, and sort of just chips away at it, I think he'll have it in the bag. But he's also a racing driver, and I know Jordan is going to test the limits lap after lap after lap. So I hope he kind of gets into a rhythm and goes with it, because I think he can pull a decent gap and get away.
Oh, Bashir just went second place there, Tasman. Sorry to interrupt you. Bashir went second place, 0.2 of a second down. So now Jordan's got some competition on his hands.
That's my man. That's who my money's on. I think.
Perfect timing there, Marius.
No, I mean, I was letting Tasman finish, but Bashir from the beginning was sitting in second, then he was down to third, then he was second down to third, and we saw him sliding through the Schumacher S's.
Oh, beautiful stuff.
Immense car control, and he's just been a cool flipping customer. I mean, he's the only one to take a race win off of Zaire, and I just think he's cool. I don't think anything flusters him. I would have put money on Jason as well, but he's a bit far down at the moment for me. But let's see, that might change in the race, because I've seen him do this in real wet conditions in a real race. So I know he's got talent as Jason Upsmeyer. But for me, Bash is the man, I think.
I'd like to see Kadile back on the podium for the second week in a row. Not necessarily for the win, but we never know what happens there.
Well, and that's the thing. That's why I'm finding it very difficult to put my money on anybody, because it's a wet race. The first 5 guys, God forbid, could be out of it in the first corner. So it's difficult to say. I think, Jason Webb has proven that he's fast in these conditions, consistently fast in these conditions, but he's a bit far down in 10th position. Abschmeyer, as you say, we know is quick. I think Jadwat might be the guy here. I'm going to have to agree with Marius on this one. I think Jadwat might be the guy if it's not Sherrod.
So just making a note here on my notepad, rain for the rest of the season.
Definitely going to make it a lot more interesting, that's for sure.
Yeah, I just I stick with it. I mean, Charles, we see down up to 20 seconds. There's fine, maybe 2 seconds. But the hard thing for me, I really do. I haven't spent much time playing the simulator, but you really do struggle as a if you spend all your time on real tracks. It's hard to get your head around. Hard to get your head around what the car is doing. You just don't feel it. So I think it's even more difficult in wet conditions. But have a look at Sarah. He's now popped Bashir Jadwat. So it's 0.1. So Jordan kind of remember he started with 0.7 and how that's been whittled down. But qualifying's pretty much done. So that's how it's going to end. It doesn't get closer than that. 0.1 and 0.2.
Wow. Know that Jordan hasn't been on track. The track's obviously getting a little bit grippier. And that's why these guys are finding that much more time. Jordan hasn't been on since he set that time.
He's having a coffee. He's actually sitting back and chilling.
He's waiting it out.
The tire model in the simulator also, after a couple of laps, if the guys are doing 10 laps or 7 laps, the tires definitely start getting more and more grippy as well. So Jordan is, I still think, in a very good position here. If he's only done a couple of laps and then set that time, he could be sitting on a very fast setup there. Abschmeyer goes up to 4th position. Well done to him there. And as we go on board with Cody, the younger of the Sherrod brothers over there, in 8th place at the moment. Zahir Essa getting into 2nd position on the front row of the grid. Oh my goodness, it's too difficult to call, folks. You're going to have to wait and see, just like the rest of us. We're going to go to a short ad break, and when we come back, we'll be back at a very wet Nürburgring. We'll see you guys in a couple of minutes. while the rest of us are comfortable at home, these drivers are in the hot seat now. And notice the cars up on jack stands. They are just patiently waiting for the countdown. 1 minute, 30 seconds to go until they hit the ground and make their way around for their parade lap. We scan through the guys lined up now, and Jordan Shedder easily in first position. He didn't even go out again. Zahir Esser gets onto the front row of the grid. He's going to be very happy about that. Some clear air for him. Bashir Jadwat, so close to second place, but just gets third. And Jason Abschmeyer in fourth place. Mostly a Porsche affair, but it's nice to see some Audi and Merc flavor peppered in there, Marius.
Yeah, I know Jonathan was raving about Bruno. We saw a great result from him 2 weeks ago at Monza. And like we said, now balance of performance is out the window in wet conditions like this, and that's why it's good to see those Mercs up there where they are. So great job by Bruno. Listen, this is going to be interesting in turn one because obviously Jordan is where he needs to be on the inside for that corner, and this is going to be good because that's what happened with at Zandvoort. You know, if you rattle the feathers of Zahir Esser early on, it turns into an interesting race for everyone else and for us as spectators. So I'm glad that he's not on pole because I think we're gonna see a cracker race.
Yeah, indeed. We want to see competition. We want to see different winners. We want to see new drivers bubble to the surface. And nothing does that better than racing in the rain. But I think our resident lady racer might not necessarily agree with us because it's a different story when you're sitting on the start line and the lights go out and it looks like this.
Yeah, let's be honest. Yeah, rain conditions are never ideal. The rain on the weather forecast, I just actually go into. I think I start stressing out before I even get to the racetrack. These are one of the most crucial or most hectic conditions you have to drive in, and they make you the most nervous as well because anything can happen. One day you're good, the next day you're not, or you can be in a healthy lead and make a silly mistake, and that's your race done. So I think it's trying to keep a level head and just pick away at it, and also not be too cautious, but also not drive on the limit every single lap.
Exactly, and I know you've raced. I've spent some time in a single-seater in the rain. It is absolutely horrific. You get drenched to the bone, and you've had experience with that, I would imagine, as well.
Yeah, I mean, my first race in W Series again back last year in Hockenheim, we had qualifying. Well, our first practice was in the rain, and I was picking away at it, getting more confidence, and I eventually went in a little bit too late into one of the corners and ended up going into the gravel trap, and that was the end of that session. And then I went into qualifying, and obviously nervous from the crash in practice and not wanting to make the same mistake, and I didn't get any heat into the tires, so I was absolutely nowhere. So, like you said, it is a very big confidence thing, and if you do break that confidence in a practice session or a qualifying, going into the race makes it very difficult. But every racing driver is in the same predicament. The weather conditions are the same for everyone, so it's not you against yourself. So it's almost like you gotta back up and you gotta go and do it. And some days you do well, and other days not. But it is a level playing field, and it does make for really good racing. So we'll see what comes up.
It is the ultimate equalizer as the guys make their way now. Just after this, we saw earlier on there was the Schumacher S's. They're going to go through the turn 10 now into the Warsteiner curve and then make their way down towards the start finish. A couple of Ks down the road. Marius, are you feeling as excited as I am? I can't wait to see these guys battle it out.
Yeah, it's quite cool. We mentioned in the Pro-Am race too. I mean, you're obviously generating as much heat as you can now. And the best way to do that is heavy on the brakes, accelerate heavy on the brakes. The weaving's not going to do too much in these conditions. So you'll see a lot of the guys accelerate away and then jump on the anchors because you generate so much heat through the tires in that way. And we know rolling start into turn one, it's a heavy braking situation. You don't want to arrive there with cold tires and brakes because that will be chaos. But just on what Taz was saying, it really is. You can come in and let the weather conditions dominate your mind. You've actually got to be quite, like I said earlier, you've got to be assertive. You've got to go there and drive. Otherwise, it's literally you're going to find yourself dropping further and further and further back in the race. And I think it's about arriving and saying, yes, I love the rain. Even if you don't, it's like that that positive psychology stuff going on. And this is now where it's proper race phase, final turn, 15, and we're about to get to green light racing.
Oh, green light racing, a nervous sigh from me. I can't imagine what the drivers are going through now. We've got Essa there on the right of your screen. On the left, we've got Jordan Shedder in first position. They make their way towards the flag. Ladies and gentlemen, we have green flag racing. Off they go. Shedder in the lead so far. Essa pulling up alongside. Shedder's got the inside line. That is Oliphant there making a move, or Abschmeyer making a move on Jadwat there. Jadwat loses his third position. Oh, as they go into the first corner. So far, so good. Some of the guys coming in hard on the brakes. They're 4 abreast further back. As Shedder takes the lead and keeps it. Essa slots into second place with Bashir now back into third. We go on board with Bashir Jadwat.
Great racing, and nice to have that cam from above, and you can see guys leaving each other enough space. Really good driving, like we saw in the proms, everyone making through turn 1 unscathed, and this is what we wanted to see. I mean, off to a cracker start was Jordan, and now we're going to see if he's going to settle into a rhythm, because Essa's got a lot of work to do. A long race ahead of us, but I love
lots and lots of places to make mistakes, though. That's the thing about wet weather racing. A mistake can happen at any point, even this section of here. I can promise you that these guys can't see much out of their cars right now. There's an opportunity for aquaplaning even on the straight bits as they're going to the hard braking zone here at turn 7 hairpin, and then they're going through, in my mind, one of the trickiest corners on any circuit, the Schumacher S's, and quite aptly named Schumacher S's because we knew he could drive well. But can these guys, they all make their way through? No problem so far. The Audi touches the green stuff there, but we know the Audi's good here, so no problem so far. And pretty much at the moment, the positions have stayed the same.
What's happened here, guys? Where's all the action? Like, you would think rain conditions would give us more. I'm really impressed with how everyone's sort of got through the first lap almost. I think we need rain conditions throughout the rest of the season, to be honest.
Well, yeah, well, one of the guys that's not complaining about these rain conditions is Leslie Oliphant. He's doing quite well here in 6th position, right behind Kadile in the White Rabbit Gaming Mercedes-Benz. They go through the curbs, not taking too much curbs there, are they? And I was expecting the guys to go a little bit faster through there, like we saw in qualifying, but now they're certainly taking it easy as they round the last bend to take and finish their first lap. Well done. I think a round of applause is in order. Everybody making it through perfectly. They grab some water there to get those tires cooled down, and the tire setup is going to be absolutely critical as they're going to hard under braking there. The Constantini effect really coming into effect there, but the driver's still managing to hold it together and not taking each other out.
But have a look at Jordan. He's already 1 lap and he's opened nearly 2 seconds of a gap. I mean, that's a blitz opening lap in tricky conditions, because it's hard. You've had a sighting lap building up to the start. Nothing's at full race pace. So to be on it, hit all your braking markers and pull a gap like that, that's some proper driving in the rain. We've got a nice little live shot below looking at the action further back, but a couple of spins. That's what Tasman wanted.
That's Junior McCall.
Junior McCall, welcome to the pros, son. He's got 46 minutes to sort that stuff out. I mean, this is going to be a proper learning curve for him now. And we saw it happen in the pro race, guys that didn't get to qualify starting from the back and still finishing in the top 10. Probably not going to be that easy in the pros, but there's still places to be made for Junior. But this is great racing. Look how close the guys are. Super committed as well. And I mean, chatting to the Pro-Am guys, they didn't say there were too many issues from a grip perspective with these wet tires. They lasted the 50 minutes, no problem. But as we saw, the pros are quite a lot more aggressive in terms of how they're lining up these cars for the corners.
Yeah, the pro guys are really fast. I mean, the pace difference between some of the pro guys and the AM guys is just insane. And to be able to get an extra 2 or 3 seconds in these conditions, it's crazy to think that it's possible. These guys are so fast, and we saw now the fastest guy still in the lead. That's Jordan Shedder. Bashir Jadwat now taking second place and starting to get a comfortable lead over Essa. A 1 second gap between him and Essa now, and this is going to be such a great confidence booster for Bashir Jadwat to know that he's quicker than Essa even in these conditions.
Yeah, listen. we know there's so much that can happen. I'd love to be able to have chatted to the drivers a bit more, just in terms of the setups that they were going with, because we're sitting and playing. Like, do you go with the cars firmly set up, or are you going with something that's a little bit more compliant? We know guys have probably dialed back the traction control on these vehicles, so it'll be interesting to see the setups the guys are playing with. You did say to us earlier that Jason was going with a dry setup, which is quite interesting. There's a lot of guys might have gone for a safer setup on this car to get the maximum out of it.
Well, Jason, we're flashing his lights there. As you say, Maurice, he's running quite a stiff suspension setup here, and he's made changes, but found that those changes actually slowed him down. So he doesn't mind if the car moves around a little bit. That's kind of suits his driving style, which is also why he chose a front-engine car for the series. And that might have put him at a disadvantage pace-wise, but as far as his driving style goes, he prefers a front-engine setup, as he put some pressure now on Basson here right up front of him.
But you said he was a drifter, wasn't he?
Yeah, no, he's SA Drift champion. So
he likes a bit of sideways action. I remember Kwesi Veyers in Polo Cup. He used to, when it was wet weather, he actually used the handbrake to
for the tighter corners.
Adjust the car. He was really quick in the rain.
Well, the handbrake then effectively is changing the brake bias by using the handbrake. And if you don't have a brake bias adjuster, I mean, that's one way of doing it. I wouldn't personally recommend it to anybody, but Kwesi Veyers is a very talented South African driver, that's for sure.
But you know what the thing though, it's very different going liking your car set up loose in the dry. But I mean, that's going to happen naturally in the wet. My concern is if you've got it set up like that to be loose, I think you then really are fighting even more for traction. So it's a surprising setup. I would have gone with something that's less aggressive, more of a neutral setup, because you're going to be fighting traction anyway. So trust me, you're going to be going sideways however you've set it up. It just seems like more of a battle with a firmly set up car to get grip.
Yeah, this is true. I know, and we spoke about that extensively. It's just difficult to get the Mercedes set up. But someone that hasn't had a problem getting his Mercedes set up is Bruno Cadile, who in 5th place at the moment is not doing too badly, mixing it up with the fast Porsches and the Audi up front there. I mean, he should be happy with that. As we look at Quade Claessens, who's now down in 8th position with Morgan McCall, the older of the two ATK and drivers and McCall brothers, chasing down hard onto Quade Claessens. They seem to have some good pace. I was actually in a lobby with him similar to this last night, doing a couple of wet laps, and he had some incredible pace. So I think Morgan is going to start carving through some of the field here from 9th position.
You know, it's quite funny though. I don't know if our lap time is frozen, but I look at that gap between Bashir and Jody. It's stuck at 1.87, and that for me was like, wow. So he raced to that opening lap, and it just goes back to what Tasman was saying, how quickly he's able to find that limit, and that's clearly what happened in that opening lap. But now Bash is certainly in his rhythm, and look, that gap hasn't opened. It stayed set at 1.8, so nothing in it, and that makes for exciting racing. No one's running away from anything here.
Well, Bashir now starting to get a little bit of pressure from Essa having closed that gap a little bit. But I tell you what, Bashir is one of those guys that can pump lap after lap after lap. Doesn't matter what the conditions are, doesn't matter what going wrong with the car, he's able to make the adjustments and still maintain pace. And someone that does that equally well is Essa. So behind Jordan are two drivers that are two of the most consistent drivers in the field, and he's got these guys chasing him down. So what is going through the mind of Jordan Shedid now as he still maintains that 1.8 second lead after 3 laps?
Yeah, I think nothing.
Well, I think he's
nailing it.
Yeah. I think he's got that lead, and he's kind of, like I said, getting into a rhythm and just using the same braking markers, the same turning points, getting on the power at the same time. I mean, he's 1.8 seconds ahead. He doesn't really have to look too much to find anything more unless they start closing that gap. But to be honest with you, they actually are closing it by 0.2 for the last 3 laps. So it was up to 2 seconds, and now it's at 1.6 seconds. So I don't know. I think
closer on screen though.
But it also, guys, it goes back to what we mentioned earlier. Jordan is the guinea pig. He's finding the traction. He's finding the brake markers. So when you are within that zone, you can see what's happening to that car ahead of you. So it gives you a target to focus on. What does become a challenge, as you start getting closer to that guy, that's when you're starting to get a bit on the accelerator a little bit earlier, and that's where mistakes can happen as well. So it's closing up that gap is cool, but when you get to right on the guy's tail, that's when you start getting a bit excitable, even though you don't want to, and you start getting a bit happy on the throttle, and that's where we're going to expect some spins.
Yeah, following the rain is exceptionally difficult. Simple thing like using your dry brake marker in a momentary lapse of concentration, instead of using your wet brake marker, use a dry brake marker, and now you're going straight off the circuit. And you're not allowed to make one mistake like that in 50 minutes. Not one single mistake. And these guys, somebody runs wide there. That's Cody. That's a bit close there. Look down the inside there. That could have ended in disaster for both of them as they go through the Schumacher S. Just look at the attitude of the cars as the cars slip and slide their way through. Sherrod not shy to touch the green stuff there. And,
it's as you said, Ernest, it was on point. As you said, it's so easy to just miss your brake marker, and your left foot's gone through the floor trying to get this thing to stop.
Which is worse. It's worse because they end up not stopping at all.
Yeah. Well, these cars have settings in game. You can change the steering ratio. So for these conditions, you can drop the steering ratio all the way down. And then also you can drop the brake pressure to say 90%. So even maximum brake pressure is effectively then 90% of maximum brake pressure. So, there are settings that you can negate that, oh my goodness moments and hopefully not lock up.
Well, we also spoke in the Pro-Ams about, going with different discs and pads. What you don't want are super aggressive setups on the brakes. You want everything to be progressive. How your throttle comes in, how you've set your car up in terms of that with the mapping, as well as the brakes. So that's
we've got a problem.
We've also made something.
They swap position.
S is ahead,
S's. We're going to get a replay
on that,
Yeah, we're going to get a replay on that in a second, Marius. Essa took Jadwat there, and just as I was saying earlier, Jadwat is Mr. Consistency, the pressure, and there wasn't even much of it, of Essa. I mean, I've been on track with Essa, and to have him in your rearview mirrors, knowing that he is the fastest guy here, it's a different kind of pressure, certainly.
I don't know if that, for me, I think, when you're in the wet, you actually really don't have time to look in your mirrors, because I think you literally are busy, so busy dancing the car around the ice skating rink. So I think this was just one of those little mistakes that we've seen happen where you just...
I ran off the track.
The last corner, getting a little bit curb there. Yeah, and we've seen earlier. He was totally committed through that chicane there. And that's the thing. That's the thing with these Porsches, though. When you are that committed with these Porsches, as you can see, they're grabbing that curb, the wheel lifts up, and one mistake in these Porsches where it might not have been a mistake 3 laps in a row can result in a mistake where you go a couple of millimeters off, and something like that happens. You get a little bit of a moment if you go in this position.
This is why I do not like rain conditions, guys. Because it's like when you least expect it. It works, and then it stops working.
Our timing of this race is really poor, because I think last weekend Sunday's movie on Mnet was The Art of Racing in the Rain. So it would have been perfect if we finished and went straight into that movie. The guys probably thought, good thing that it was played last week. I might have got tipped.
And last week, none of them were thinking, I tell you what, a week ago, none of these guys were thinking that this would be the situation. And now they're faced with the worst conditions we've seen since the start of the Pro Series a couple of months ago. And these guys are really, really struggling right now to just make sure that they hold position and then try and potentially get 1 or 2 positions back. Because I'm sure none of these guys are happy where they are unless you're in first place, being Jordan Sherrod.
But this is a great battle at the moment. Obviously, what's happened up top with Bashir and Zaire has opened up a bit of a gap there for Jordan. But this is the battle to watch, because it really does look like Bruno is the cork in the bottle of champagne at the moment, because he's really holding these guys up, is what it feels like. But very, very difficult conditions to make that move. And when you do, it's got to be really, really clean. I think most of the moves we've seen have been guys making little mistakes under braking. So Bruno's doing a good job keeping a cool head about him, but he's got some really, really fast drivers stuck up behind him.
Yeah, as we say, and we were discussing earlier on that, I really thought the drivers would make mistakes at the big areas, like the Schumacher S's, like that last chicane. I mean, yes, we did see Bashir make a mistake coming out of that chicane. Oh, that's a bit tight there, they might touch.
He's run wide, it was great.
Quade Clarkson takes it. Yeah, Quade Clarkson takes advantage. I thought they might have touched there as they now head to the Schumacher S's. And as I said, this is where I thought a lot of the mistakes would happen. But as you pointed out, Marius, the mistakes are happening in those spots where the guys break 1 meter, 2 meters too late and then run a little bit wide.
Yeah, I think once you're at the committed parts where this is like a fast part of the track, I mean, you literally... you've made that choice, and now it's just about piloting the car through that. It's when you get to the break points, you're being a bit greedy and trying to take that 1 extra meter or 5 meters extra that you end up in trouble. So, yeah, that was some good driving, because again, I mean, for us sitting there, we don't know at what level of braking Leslie's sitting at. So we think, oh, he's going to run into the back of him, but he was perfect on his braking markers, and obviously Cody just ran wide. So those are those little mistakes that happen very easily and things get mixed up. But Cody's right on the back of him again. So really interesting. I see Bernard King's got a 15-second drive-through. So that must be cutting corners somewhere, which I think might have been just trying to save himself. Yeah. But yeah,
it's quite tricky. It's quite tricky to cut corners here, because it's not like Paul Ricard where there's certain sections where the track is open and you can cut. This year, you do cut here, it's going to be a problem. As the guys bunch up going into the first corner, Bruno Cadile getting exceptional pressure now from Leslie Oliphant, Quade Claessens, Cody Shedden, and Morgan McCall not too far back either. So Bruno Cadile is going to have to prove why he is our driver of the day from last week and hold off the charging Porsches. 3 Porsches in his rearview mirror. That can't be a good thing.
But you know what?
No, and I think when you're in such a close battle like this, and you're watching the guys from behind you sort of braking, and you're seeing that guy getting closer and closer and closer on the brakes, and you're almost holding your breath, going, "Please don't hit me! Please don't hit me!"
Indeed.
You know what's quite interesting? I mean, we know this Merc is quick in a straight line. That's why we're so good at Monza. And we saw that coming down out of turn 15, getting good drive. He seems to open up a good gap. And then look how everyone bunches up through the tight and technical parts of the Nürburgring circuit. They get really close to Bruno again, putting him under real pressure. So I think that is a concertina effect that we see just in terms of cars being better at certain parts of the track. We know the Porsches turn and rotate well. So through the tight and tricky stuff, they're doing well. But Bruno is keeping a cool head. I like it.
Unbelievable stuff, really. So far, so good. 34 minutes of racing left, and Bruno Cadile's got everything to play for. Your 5th place. Another top 5 finish for him would go down very well indeed. So he's going to try and make sure he holds up that position. And yeah, that's an Audi further back. That's Cody further back. And the thing is that in these conditions, it's easy to catch up because of the pressure and all that kind of stuff. But it's so difficult. If the driver in front is able to keep that car wide, and I think the Mercedes is an easy car to keep wide, then it's very difficult to overtake you. And one of the coming up close there is Oliphant really having a look there, and one of the easy places to overtake is getting a good run out of the last corner here and making your way into that hard braking zone at the end of the straight. Here they go. This is going to be Oliphant having a look now. Oliphant keeping the inside line. We go on board with Bruno and then jump back outside. Oliphant goes around the outside. The other 2 cars also cornering and coming closer. And look at that. They're all bunched up now. Oh my goodness me, what is going to happen?
Bruno nailed the brake marker there. I mean, he was...
Oliphant now losing out. Oliphant goes wide. Oliphant goes wide, loses 2 positions. Oliphant goes wide. Oh my goodness.
Because it didn't look like... I think they touched because it looked like he was rotating fine and suddenly ran really wide. But Bruno nailed the brake marker there. That was fantastic under massive pressure. I'll do that again to see what happened there, because I'm sure they touched through the Mercedes arena.
On my side, I didn't get any indication that they touched. I didn't get a notification of that, so I don't think they did. Possibly just a rear end a snap oversteer moment for Oliphant.
Or maybe also panicking, because you are told car on the left, so maybe he thought, and he gave himself too much, gave the car on the inside too much space and ended up running onto the slippery stuff.
Well, Bruno Cadile is for me the shining star in that moment there. I mean, that kind of pressure, and you can see even in your peripheral visions on your rearview mirror that the cars are bunching up behind you. And here again, Oliphant now returning. He's clearly got the pace, so he's returning back to this fight, going, "It's not over, guys. I'm back for round 2."
And take a look at. I mean, we don't see it right now, but you see how Cody and Leslie are not afraid of getting right up on your bumper, which is a slightly different approach to how you see Quade driving. Quade kind of keeps like more of a safety bubble there, whereas those other guys are very not concerned about any sort of lag or netcode issue that would cause contact between them.
I don't know about that. I just think guys are braking hard, and getting close. I don't know about any concerns. I think the aggression is coming out. The visors are down, and they want that position.
I think they're just hoping for the best. I'm like, please stop, please stop.
Yep, survival, guys. Come now.
I tell you, when you brake that hard and you're rushing up towards the other car, it's a really a heart in your stomach.
It's panic mode. It's serious panic mode. That pedal gets really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quaid Claessens then are running wide, and that's not what you want to do. You don't want to go wide there, specifically not at that point. The curves got very slippery, and you were just saying how close Sherrod gets there, right on the back bumper of Claessens there. All of these guys getting equal pressure, and Bruno Cadile, the man shining the most here, not even flinching so far. He's clearly not got the fastest car, but Marius, our man doing just fine there.
It was amazing watching him go through the NGK chicane up at the top, because he took a lot of curb, and Quaid actually had to run at him into that final turn, but he's just nailing the brake markers spot on every single time. But you're right. I mean, like Tasman was saying earlier, you look in the mirror and you see there like Cody running a little bit deep. You go, oh, am I going to get collected here? So I think, in the game, you just want to just not be worrying about anything that's happening behind you, like you're going to try and do in the real world as well, because you don't want to see that car, that fender disappearing under your tail.
Oliphant lost some position there. He ran a little bit wide going through that corner, so he lost a little bit of pace there. But I think Cadile is going to do a good job of bunching them back up. He's certainly giving us a little bit of racing here to watch, because he's making sure that all these guys get stuck behind him. But as I said earlier on, it's one thing to get close in these conditions. It's a whole other thing to pass. And you also want to pressurize the guy in front to making a mistake. But at the moment, that's not working.
Yes, but I'm just having a look. Sorry, this race, I know this little battle is amazing, but looking at the top, I mean, Jordan's up to nearly 4 seconds over Zaire, and Zaire's opened up nearly 3 seconds on Bash. So, Jordan is on fire, and I think, I mean, Taz called it earlier in terms of his karting experience coming through.
Yeah, his karting experience surely coming through there. I mean, he's one of those drivers that has got much experience in these conditions, and I never actually thought of it that way, Tasman, is that in the kart you expose, same with a single seat, you expose to the elements, so you actually get to see what the road looks like. Versus in a car, you kind of get to experience what the road feels like, and you kind of look out your fogged up mirror, because you don't have an engineer that can fix the fog. But in a kart or single seater, you can see what's happening right next to the car, and that kind of experience, man, it comes in very handy in a situation.
Well, I think on a kart as well, everything is direct. So, any steering input you feel, and you literally do feel every little bit of grip, because you are sitting so low to the ground and you're not insulated in any way. But I mean, he is looking supreme out front, which is really amazing. 4 seconds, that gap. And that's kind of what Zaire was saying. I mean, he said a few times now, we know that Jordan's had a couple of issues come race time, but he was saying, he was like hoping to have that battle with Jordan, because we know how quick he is. And I mean, this is now at round 6 where he's getting to show his real ability. So, the front runners have predicted his prodigious pace. We've seen it, but it's never ever quite materialized in the race, and now it is today.
Prodigious. I was impressed by your word, and I'm trying to repeat it, and I can't do it.
Yeah,
but that is exactly
this morning.
But that is exactly what that is. I mean, a 3.8 second lead over Zaire Essa is no small feat. Nobody's ever done that yet.
No, I just look at those gaps now as well. I mean, Jason's kind of dropping off the back of Bash, and Bash is falling off the back of Zaire. Everyone's kind of spaced out now. So the real battle is this one that we're looking at for 5th and 6th. But as we've seen, I mean, it's so easy to go and make one little mistake. We've got 27 minutes to go in the race, and we saw it in the Pro-Am race. We've seen it in every single one of these rounds. Normally with about 10-15 minutes to go, things start going awry from a grip perspective. But I think in conditions like this, we mentioned it, it is such a mental battle, because you really are having to concentrate. I think, when a track so well in the dry, you can get into that rhythm a lot easier, but in the wet, it's hard to find a rhythm, because you are fighting for grip every single corner.
Well, Quaid Claessen's now having a look there, fighting for the 6th or 5th position over there. Quaid Claessen's having a look. He's going to go down the inside here into the left hand in the Mercedes Bowl. They go side by side. This is bad. This is bad. He touches the Mercedes Benz, and the two of them are now parked on the track. That is it for Bruno Cadile's 5th place hopes.
No, but that's just naughty. I mean, that was never, ever an opportunity. And that's what we're saying. You know, it's like we've been seeing the guys being so good in terms of when it's a definite chance for an overtake, and that wasn't it. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in that. But it's a real pity because Bruno's been driving really well, and at the end of the day, you're trusting the guy behind you not to put his car in places that are going to end up with you being rotated the wrong way. So that for me was pretty cut and dry. To see Tasman's been back on and off the servo. Hopefully she's back, and I'll be good to get her input on that as well.
Honestly, that corner over there is a bit of a problem because the dry line through there is very tight and keeping to the left.
Yeah, it is.
So what happens is that in the wet, that line becomes very slippery. There's a puddle that forms over there. And this game actually replicates where there are drains and how well those drains work, believe it or not. So that section there isn't well drained. So what happens is the dry line, which is the overtaking line there, has got a puddle. So as soon as he got to that apex over there, as we see the Porsche sliding through, he probably got a little bit of understeer and just bumped the Mercedes, and that was the end of that.
But it's even before that. That was never a chance. You know what I mean? It's like your line through there is coming from wide, and then he's always going to tighten to take the left. So you know you can't come from that far back in wet conditions and kind of Hail Mary and hope it's all going to work out. So
I'd love to see an aerial view of that incident so we can try and figure out what exactly happened there as we look at now Cody and Leslie Oliphant being left alone to battle it out.
It's quite interesting though. We were talking about hard to cut corners here, but I mean now I've got two more guys with drive-through penalties. Bernard King in the 15 seconds of service added through, no drive-throughs added to the end, and now Albertine as well. So interesting to see where these guys are cutting corners or getting penalised by the game. But yeah, I'm sure we're going to get a replay of that incident. It'd be good to see it. But just at a first look, and I've been wrong many times, happy to always admit it. But on first look, for me, it just felt like someone was putting their nose in the wrong place, and that's Quaid.
I see Tasman's back. Did you just say that you're happy to admit you're wrong only because Tasman's back? Or
He knows.
I'm happy to call it.
That was the lightest of touches. That
There's
was
the
the
replay
lightest of touches. What do you guys think? Let's watch that again. If we can, producer, if we could see that again, I'd love to get you guys feedback on this one.
Do you know what, Ernest? It doesn't matter what the touch is, whether it's a sledgehammer or a light touch. You shouldn't be touching there. You know what I mean? That's the point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
in
sad,
these
man.
conditions, a little touch is a big touch, you know. It's
Here we
already
go again. Here we go again. As they now go into the left-hander. As they look down the inside.
You can't be there.
Man, that is such a pity. That was such a good race unfolding there. I was keen to see what would happen. But now we've got Leslie and McCall quite happy to go. Leslie and Sherrod quite happy to go. Well, we'll see you guys later. Thanks for the help. I'll take 5th and 6th positions.
And Jordan Sherritt is checking out properly. He's not 5.1 seconds up in front, eh?
Yeah, he's got a race of his own. But we've seen stranger things happen. I'm sure you've seen it too, where the leader's circulating ahead in the rain, and then 2 laps later the car's upside down in the boonies. So you need to make sure. You need to make sure that.
So have a look. Quaid's been issued a 15-second penalty. So that's obviously by Jonathan. I don't know if he's back on commentary. Maybe you can confirm that for us. Is that your ruling on that?
Yeah, that's all 3 of those are mine.
Okay.
So
We start with Albertine. Just work us through because we assumed those were game issued.
If
What
it's
are
a
they?
game issued penalty, it would probably either be a drive-through or a stop-go 30. So these 15-second time penalties are what I issue on the fly.
What
so
were they?
Albertine was for he rear-ended Stain and spun him around.
Okay.
In turn 1, King was the same issue, but also Stain. So poor Stain has taken a beating today. And then with Claassens, he actually took a dive there, and I don't think he was expecting Kadila to break as late as Quaid did. So the dive ended up being like a bit half-hearted.
Yeah, because it's I said no. I mean, you know where that corner's going. It's a tight left, so the guy's always got to come onto that line. Yeah. So it just seemed like maybe a bit of frustration, trying to get past and thinking he's got an opportunity. Real quick.
I think because it was such a tight battle already, he needed to make a last ditch effort to do that.
Jordan Shedden getting a little bit squirrely there. Sorry, guys. I thought that was out of control, but it wasn't. It was perfect.
Jonathan, that's not the place. You know what I mean? That's not a traditional overtaking spot on the circuit. So it's about, having your move at that place where you're in with a good shot, not a 50-50. 50-50 can work in the dry. 50-50 never works in the wet.
Yeah, I think in that particular corner, the only way it would work is if there was a mistake made by the ahead driver in the previous turn. So if there was, if the driver behind could smell an overtake there, but that I'm not sure what Quaid was thinking. I'll find out from him afterwards. But
look, I'm gonna play devil's advocate here for Quaid and say that could he have been maybe trying to do the undercut into the following corner? Because if you line up, if you could have stayed tight in that left-hander and then cut him over and get the run down through the right-hander onto the straight there, that might have been the plan. But the plan clearly didn't work. I just think that might have been his thought process.
No, I'm going to say no, because the perfect racing line through there takes away any undercut. Because if the guy's turning in, it's a left-hander into the right, and it's a short gap between the two. So as a driver on a perfect line, you're going to keep as far left as you can to open up the right-hander.
Yes.
So you're essentially taking away any opportunity for an undercut there. So I just think he thought it was a 50-50, and maybe that thing he was running, what's his name, was running too wide, and that he would have a little chance through there, Bruno. And it was a wrong call, because he managed to make the corner no problem.
Well, a wrong call for sure. He earned himself a 15-second penalty, and that puts him somewhere down to about 12th or 13th position. Another driver that's also got a penalty is Bernard King in the Lexus, giving Wesley Hampson that first place for Team Lexus. Wesley Hampson's going to be overtaking him pretty sure, well, at least overtaking him on the standings with that 15-second penalty, and then Albertine all the way down in 22nd. Junior McCall now way down in 23rd position there.
But remember he had that spin, so he's actually doing quite well, and he's getting his rhythm again, and it's his first pro race. He's been dominating in pro-ams, but we know it's a massive step up, and I think that's the decision for a lot of guys in the sim racing world is, do you want to go and be mid-pack in the pros, or do you want to dominate in the pro-ams? And I think
Wesley Hampson doing consistent 205s there. He qualified for the 204 and doing a 205 now in his last lap, 17th position. His goal is to make it into the top 15 in pro, and he's got a Twitch stream that he drives and practices on. One of the most popular South African Twitch streams, actually, for South African Twitcher. Jonathan, is that what it's called?
Streamer.
Yeah. And what are the kids calling it these days?
Twitcher, Marcus. Great. Sounds like some sort of new fandangled young person, right?
Sorry, guys.
Definitely not a Twitcher, hey, Ernest.
No, I'm not.
I'm 45. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. I get it. My legs get restless.
New streaming app that works through the game, and you look for you and all of that. Oh, here we go. I thought I knew something you didn't know about technology, okay?
I'm old, but I'm
on Twitter last week. What's that?
I'm old but young in heart, okay? So I'm going to start from the beginning. Does everybody know about the internet? So we're on board now with Quaid Claessens here, and that Porsche certainly is twitching around quite a bit there. I wonder if these Porsches are going to start suffering as the race progresses. I think the cars have stayed pretty constant. As the Mercedes slides into view there with Bruno Cadile holding on through the Schumacher S's, but it doesn't seem like the cars are going off track.
I still think that the Porsche will have a tendency to eat the tires a bit more, but I mean, I don't really know in these wet conditions, because I've said it earlier that the tires overheat for nothing. So if you have any sort of dry line, and if your pressures are maybe slightly too high for that dry line to be forming, then it's going to overheat and wear out really quickly. So possibly where the Audi would hold some advantage. I'll tell you what, all the fastest drivers that we have in this pro division, most of them are in Porsches at the moment. So That's why we're seeing, guys being able to drive past issues on the car. So if the car's not the best that week, it doesn't matter. The guy's a really good driver. So, so massive credit to the guys, who are driving in the non-inverted commas favorite car. And it's going to be interesting. I mean, 16 minutes to go, so if there's tires going off, they're already off.
Yeah, I think at this point, if you've messed up your tire pressures or you've overheated your tires, I think you wouldn't be driving where you're driving right now. So I think at this point, I think the car is going to stay pretty much the same throughout the remainder of the race. But, you never know what happens.
It's so funny.
Jonathan, we can just go on. I mean, the only people we can rely on are the Pro-Am drivers from the previous round. And because you said the game resets, they had no tyre issues at all. And there we were looking at an Aston Martin and a Bentley, the two drivers we spoke to in first and second, Van Colla and Clip. But it's like, so for me, I don't think tyres are going to be an issue now. I think the guys, it's consistent rain is what it looks like. That dry line that we're seeing, I don't think is a massive dry line. The guys are still looking to keep the tyres cooled down. But I mean, if you go and have a look at Jordan, I mean, we were on board with him earlier. It's a proper driving masterclass in the rain with like 7 seconds over Zahir, which is brilliant. There he is again. I mean, really pushing on the limit. But all the guys, I mean, literally getting these cars crossed up, such amazing car control. And I think that was that Charles Wilkin, isn't he in the green Porsche as Jordan?
Yeah.
So that's incredible. Then you realize, I mean, Charles is massively experienced. The guy that's normally running in the top 8, probably usually around 6th. Is getting lapped in these conditions. So Jordan, oh man, what a drive.
What a drive.
I think Joel likes these conditions very much, to be very sure. He seems to be battling.
It's quite strange. I really thought with his rally experience he'd be doing quite well here.
No, but it's again, it's not. I know, I struggle with it. You do not feel what the car's doing. You see what the car's doing from a simulator perspective. And I think that is a struggle for these guys because they used to, we mentioned the Proams, Peter Solberg and the guys, when they play simulator rally games, they can't go on board view. They've got to go and view from down so they can see the rotation of the tail. And maybe that's what he's struggling with, is just to feel what the car's doing. Or maybe he's gone out on slicks. I don't know.
Oh, that's an interesting take. That's an interesting take because the slick question was a question that was posed by some of the drivers in the week when they weren't sure what the conditions were and they were testing the various rain settings in the simulator. So that was a risk that some of the drivers were prepared to take, and I'm hoping that he didn't do that because
I was just thinking that was a joke.
Okay.
Well,
He didn't. He didn't qualify very well, so if he made a mistake both in qualifying and in the race, that's very silly.
But in fairness, I mean, under damp conditions, you can push the slicks because under damp conditions, the wet tires don't work. So you kind of like in this middle ground of wet tires overheating ridiculously or running slicks that are slippery but would generally be faster than overheating wets.
One of the things that we noticed this week is that you have to test the correct tire pressures and they vary from car to car. And they vary on setup to setup. So if you've got tire pressures that are too hard, they might overinflate as the race goes on because of the heat generated. If you've got tires that are too soft, they might actually deflate as the race goes on because you're not exerting enough energy into them. So it's one of those situations you can go wrong either way, and if you do go wrong either way, you've got a problem.
Can we get the drivers thinking now? He has a suggestion. I'd love to see a race where it is damp, where it's not 40% wet like this, because what you might very well have is guys that go out and they've got 2 different tire choices, and you might see guys choosing to go for a pit stop, and that might, you know what I mean? If you've got brave enough to go out on slicks in a damp condition, treacherous, the guy ends up going out on semis and ends up running out of tires and goes on to slicks later in the race. You know, there's some interesting scenarios if we change the weather conditions to that.
Indeed.
This is wet, but I think if you're in those proper intermediates, that's where the tough calls are needing to be made with 15 minutes to go in a race generally.
Yeah, unfortunately, these cars only have wet and dry options, but an intermediate option would really spice things up, wouldn't it?
It would, absolutely. And I think actually the drivers would probably be quite appreciative of the fact that it's raining consistently throughout the race, as opposed to throwing in the tire and pit stop option. But I'll just make a note here.
Yeah, please. Because I mean,
Yeah, I think you've been too nice to them, to be fair, because in real life the track conditions change all the time.
I tell you what, we have not made it easy this week for the guys. There's been a lot of panic on social media and behind the scenes. And the drivers have entered these races today very blunt because practice has not emulated what the race is. And qualifying was dry but cold and overcast. So in a way, it's very hard for us to, without giving anything away, to tell the drivers. We can't tell them that the race will be exactly these settings. We want them to have to work on the fly and all that.
But you were giving them some hints. I mean, on social media, on Twitter, it was like proper hints, so the guys kind of knew. But
you kind of have to, though, because in real life we kind of had the weather report, so you kind of have to know sort of what's coming.
That's what the drivers were saying. That's what the drivers were saying. They were saying in real life they can look at the 7-day report and get an idea of what the weather's going to be like.
Yeah, but
in real life, you're not going to practice on the track before you get to the race day. So
this is true.
Yeah, that's true also.
Yeah,
and I think the trickiest part of the whole weather thing was probably this morning where the server was dry and sunny skies. So, I would have maybe liked to see this morning kind of, setting the pace for the day, but it is what it is.
Well, you guys really did a mind job on some of these guys, because I tell you, I was privy to some of those conversations and there was mild panic the entire week.
But that is brilliant, because I mean those conditions, like on a Saturday, being very different to the race day. I mean that's realistic, and I think that is what the guys have felt this week, is the reality of this is how it's going to be, because they've had it good. They've had perfect qualifying conditions on a Saturday, perfect race conditions on a Sunday. Now they've had two different setups, quali and race, practice and race, and for me I think that's brilliant, because that is the real world. Welcome to racing, boys.
Well, one of your drivers you were mentioning earlier on, Marius, Jason Abschmeyer, certainly is getting a welcome to 4th place over here. Well done to him. A fantastic drive in the rain.
He's always consistent though, but I mean, it's just, you have a look at that gap. I mean, he's 12 seconds off the back.
He's not getting on the podium, I don't think.
No, he's not, but I mean, it's surprising how big the gap is between the top 3.
Yeah. Look, I'm not too surprised in the sense that when we looked at the qualifying, Sherrit Esser and Jadwood were a little bit quicker than some of the other guys. And if they were able to get that time or as big of a gap in qualifying, it means that in the race, they're going to be able to string together consistently faster laps than some of the other guys. Because I think that Sherrit Esser and Jadwood were able to, they're able to do 204s, 203s, 202s, pretty consistently. Some of the other guys are going to do one lap where they can do maybe a 203, but they won't be able to do a 205 4 of them in a row. So I think the consistency really shows there, especially for Sherrit, who's now 8 seconds ahead of second place man Esser.
Brilliant. I mean, seriously, brilliant driving in the rain. It's
unbelievable.
A real masterclass. Honestly, I'm super impressed.
Marius knows I right again, though. So far, I'm right again. I just want to point that out.
Spot on. But you know what I mean? What you were saying as well, Taz, is so true, just in terms of his real race experience from a karting perspective, because you learn to get the feeling for grip levels very, very quickly in that environment, and this has been great. And I'd love to just have seen where things would have been for him if he didn't have that. Remember that first time when we saw him and he couldn't get into the server, things like that. It could be very different, the leaderboard at this stage.
But they can also drop races, can't they? So I think it might be a little bit deceiving right now, but remember, he can drop a 0-pointer where these guys are probably going to be dropping a first place and a second place. So I think the championship at the end is going to be very, very close, and you never know. I'd rather drop a 0-pointer than a 35-pointer or whatever it may be.
Yeah. Sure, that's a very interesting way to look at it, and that's certainly a way to turn what was a very, very torturous experience for him, I'm sure, into this. And I can just imagine he's 7 minutes away from punching the air as he looks forward to crossing the finish line. But it's not over yet.
Ernest, we've missed something here. Bruno was ahead of Quaid, and he's dropped way down to 9th. So somewhere along the line, Bruno has made a mistake because now he's got Kieran Patterson all over the back of him. So maybe we can find a replay of that at some point. But if you remember, he was ahead of Quaid, who had that 15-second penalty for banging into him earlier, but he was still ahead of him on track. And now he finds himself behind and quite a way down the track. So he's obviously had a little spin somewhere.
Yeah, I'm interested to see if we can have a look at that replay, because Bruno was certainly up there with the rest of the guys. He was doing so well to resist the pressure earlier on, but just eventually getting tussled up there and unfortunately getting, according to at least one of our commentators, taken out. But we'll figure that out over the course of tomorrow's discussion. It's already
been issued. He got given his 15 seconds, so that's not even up for discussion next week, you know. So his penalty's been dealt with. So he's not even going to be discussed on Monday. But this is a spicy little battle. I would love to see what happened there to Bruno, though, because he certainly dropped back quite a bit.
I think it's been building for a while, that gap. I think Quaid did manage to get past.
No, he's 9 seconds. He's lost 10 seconds. Yeah. We're ahead of him, and he's now 10 seconds back. So he's somewhere.
That's why I think that he's gotten past at some point and literally just built that gap. Because I think Kadile might have been holding Quaid up initially, which is why Quaid went for such a last gasp effort there. So perhaps Kadile realizing, well, he's not my battle right now with the 15-second penalty. So he's just letting him go, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, the psychology of this is interesting. I mean, we can't tell what the drivers are thinking at the time, because 45 minutes of racing in, there has to come a time where you go, you know what, this position's not going to change now. There's no point in pushing the absolute limits and potentially making a mistake and losing out. Whatever position I've got, maybe it's time to settle for that. But these three guys here certainly don't think that's the case. Quaid Claessen's there trying to make up as much positions as he can to try and negate that 15-second penalty. He needs to get ahead of Bruno by 15 seconds to be able to make sure that he keeps that position. And that looks exactly like what he's trying to do right now. But Morgan McCall, also one of my drivers today, Morgan McCall, really driving quite well now in 7th position. Can he keep it though with Leslie Oliphant just up front in 6th? Here's that replay now. We've got the eyes on the Mercedes-Benz. They go through that left-hander over there. That's the Schumacher X's. That's the Schumacher X's.
Yeah, I was saying, guys, there was no ways. I mean, because he was like in 3 laps for him to have lost 10 seconds. That's a big off. And that you were saying about how tricky that corner is, and we're saying, nothing bad's been happening there. Now it has. So
I'm surprised not more guys have gone off there, to be honest.
Thanks to our director for finding that, because that was a big off for Bruno. Kind of ruined his race.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, Quaid had managed to get past already, but obviously the gap, like you say.
Well, the spicy battle, like 4 minutes to go. Their back markers getting involved with Quaid Claessen's, Morgan and Leslie. Back marker getting out of the way, thank goodness. But at least we got a battle like we had in the Pro-Ams down to the wire, because up front, Jordan checked out the hair is way ahead. But this is good racing.
I don't know. It doesn't get
amazing.
The pressure is the real Quaid Claessen's now, trying to get that gap up to 15 seconds. He's got a 10-second gap so far on the car behind him, and that's really all he's trying to do, I'm sure. If he gets the overtake, that's a bonus, but it's not going to matter. He needs to get a 15-second gap on the car behind him so that he can maintain 8th position, and pushing so hard now behind the pole. He's got pressure with 3 minutes to go.
If he gets in a battle here, the chances of him getting that 15 seconds is very slim. But he seems to be quicker than Morgan, but to get past is going to be another issue.
I don't think he's going to be able to get past. Morgan's been absorbing a lot of pressure here, so let's see if Morgan can hold it together. 2 minutes, 54 seconds to go, guys. We've had 2 hours of insane racing in the rain here at the Nürburgring, but with just 2 minutes to go so far, Jordan Sheridan in 1st position, 9 seconds ahead of Zahir Essa, Bashir Jadwat in 3rd place. So it looks like the podium is pretty much sorted out, but this battle here is the one that we're looking at the moment. We've got Morgan McCall just behind Leslie Oliphant.
He's pushing,
he's pushing hard. The hard driving Quaid Claessen's trying to get that 15-second gap.
Took a lot of curb going into the NGKSs there, and good car control powering out of it. Brilliant. And he's had Cody all over the back of Jason. So another battle to watch with 2 minutes to go. So this is a good result potentially for the brothers. I think they'll be happy this weekend to say well done for a 1st and a 4th. So Jason under massive pressure. But we've seen him defend very, very well his position on track. But I think this Audi's got way more pace than the Porsche at this stage.
unbelievable pace. The Audis have just shown that they've got the ability to stay on the track without issue. I think it might be one of the easier cars to drive around the circuit. And if you can mix that kind of talent and pace that Jordan has with a car that's good in these conditions, I mean, you've got a winning combination, and that's exactly what we've seen today.
Now, interestingly enough, I don't know how this happened, but Jordan Sherritt has posted a message on the race server for Cody to save fuel. Now, I don't know if Jordan typed that himself while leading. But
I doubt it. I think he's got his dad chilling there next
Yeah.
to him.
I see that their setup, they're probably having to save fuel now before the end of the race to make
Oh my goodness, this changes everything. This changes everything.
But I mean,
it's only a minute to go. It's a minute to go.
How are you saving fuel and still opening a gap? He's just extended the lead to 10 seconds as Jordan's. Maybe Cody was running with a different
Maybe
fuel.
Cody's running tight, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Lifting coat, boys, lifting
Well,
coat.
he ain't going to be
Okay.
performing coasting when you've got 4 minutes ahead of you, you know?
Yeah, in this case, you literally just change your ECU mapping to save fuel.
But it's surprising that they would have gone with that type of thing, because I think in these wet conditions, you're going to naturally save fuel anyway. You know, so maybe the guys are being a bit cheeky in terms of how they filled the cars.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, Cody Sherritt now in 5th position. Yeah, we got eyes on him right behind Abschmeyer, and this is more than likely going to be one of the last laps. He has a look down the outside. He's got the pace under braking. He tries to do the undertake over there. What is going to happen into the left-hander now as they go into the Mercedes bowl here? On the outside, that's the wrong line. That line's never going to work. And that's the half spin you were talking about earlier on. He's across the track now. He's across the track now.
That was far too aggressive. That was never, ever going to work. But, I mean, our leader, Jordan, what a masterclass. 10 seconds, 11 seconds coming to get the checkered flag now, which is absolutely brilliant. But I suppose brother Cody had to go for it.
He had to go
do or die.
Yeah, that Audi likes to have that weird rotation, and when you enter the corner just too hot, that rear just is like, nope, can't do it.
But off the
So once
line
it goes, it just carries on going, doesn't it? Like, I got it. No, I don't.
No, you don't. That corner
You never had it.
That corner there is very, very slippery on the outside there. And in the words of Chris Harris, it was gone before I knew it was going.
Yeah.
So Sherritt now making his way to the last corner. I can just imagine him punching the air, making his way down the final strip, hold it together, foot down on the power, fist in the air. Jordan Sherritt wins for the first time this year. Ladies and gentlemen, there is your winner, and a well-deserved performance. And as you said, Marius, a masterclass. That's really what that was.
Yeah, no, listen, I mean, we said people rise to the top of the pile in conditions like this. And he's literally going to be walking with a big smile on his face, because that was impressive driving. Qualified there and raced away from everybody. Didn't put a wheel wrong in really tough conditions. And I'm interested. I'm watching this gap. It's at 13 seconds for Quaid over Bruno.
Yeah,
So
not
it looks
enough.
like Bruno's going to get that 8th position anyway. But well done to Morgan, because he's had about 3 or 4 laps under massive pressure. Leslie Oliphant just ahead. We've got a Porsche running wide. Hope he's not going to get in the way coming back on.
Yeah, that's the last lap.
But that's it, to get the flag. So those results are done. So Bruno still securing that 8th place, only just.
Only just behind him is Cuddly. Jason Webb makes the top 10. Hampson down in 16th position. He missed out by 1, but there are a couple of 15-second penalties. I see Brent Lindsay Ray also getting a 15-second penalty. Jono not taking any prisoners today.
Definitely not. He unfortunately treated the back marker a little badly. So, yeah, fantastic racing. Sure.
Well, we're going to discuss our drivers of the day as we go offline now, and we'll be right back with the winners and results. Folks, what a race it's been. So glad you guys joined us, but stay tuned. We're not done yet. We'll see you guys after the break.
Please don't let me into my zone. 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 Please don't let me in. Don't play that. Take you down, I'ma say that. Money, me, $2. Telling you now, this payback. Fuck that. Ask him now, we'll save that. I've been going to the top and I got what they not, so I know that they hate that. But I'm on that. All these men in the zone now. And all these men gonna tell you what I did and they twisting their words till I fall out. But I know that, so I keep what I'm doing cause I own that. And I stay in the in my zone now. Having a great strap and almost banging wheels. Cause I'm back in my zone now.
Right, don't get greedy now, mate. That's good. Settle down.
And we are back, and wow, he's young, isn't he? Jordan Sherritt on the top spot of the podium there, the young South African karting champion, international race car driver in the middle of the podium for the first time. And I know this has been a long time coming for him. And after a disastrous race at Monza, taking out another driver and then getting pushed back thanks to a drive-through penalty, he wipes that slate clean by taking a clear, decisive victory. Marius, you were saying this could be your driver of the day as well.
No, look, I mean, in these conditions, if you put the car on pole and you run away to a 10-second gap over a guy like Zarius, who's leading the championship, has won 4 out of 5 rounds, you're head and shoulders above everyone else. I'm just looking at that profile picture. What were those vampire movies from years ago? Is he stolen that photograph?
Could you need a haircut, bud?
I can give you my haircut. It's beautiful.
Look, it's lockdown, okay? It's difficult to get a haircut these days, okay? I share his emotion right now.
I don't know if that's his lockdown look, guys. That's his normal racing look.
I'm happy to chat with you.
Well, we're going to get all 3 of these guys into the commentary booth. And Marius, your favorite driver, at least one of our favorite drivers as well, certainly one of mine, Bashir Jadwat, he's coming in first. And what a drive from him. Unfortunately, a little bit of a mistake there, but he still ended up in the position that he started, which was 3rd. And Bashir Jadwat, what a drive in the rain. How difficult was it to bring this car home?
Hey guys, it was intense. I'm sweating bullets here, even though it's so cold in Cape Town. I don't think I breathed properly the entire race. It was hectic.
I'm very upset with you because we took bets and I put money on you. I know you're an accountant, so you know what to do with my funds. I had you for the race win, but still, I mean, great in 3rd place. Those conditions are a real test of a driver's mental strength as well, not just your car control.
Yeah, it was. I'm happy with that result. I made one mistake on the last chicane, but the rest of the race was pretty decent, I felt. I didn't have pace for Jordan, but I'm a bit disappointed that I didn't fight Zahir a bit more when he got by me, because he let me by with the same mistake and I sort of handed it back to him. So yeah.
Oh man, but you know what? It's one of those things where something happens and you've got to put it behind you. And the fact that you were able to do that and not let it affect your race, I mean, that's just brilliant stuff. What in that moment there, what did you say to yourself to put your head back down and get that podium position?
Nothing PG rated, but yeah, I was upset with myself, but it happens. I knew the track conditions were horrid, so I sort of gave myself, I worked myself up to allow myself 2 mistakes, so I did one of them, so I'm happy with that.
But just a quick one before we let you go. Did you change your setup much? Because I know some guys were going with like dry setup, but I just imagined in these conditions you'd want a car that's less firm and maybe a little bit more compliant.
I drove the default wet setup. I didn't have enough time to do a proper wet setup, so I loaded the default wet and I just played with the tire pressures to bring them in line with what they need to be.
And happy?
But, happy. I could have had more front-end bite, I felt. I was struggling through the Schumacher S with understeer.
Oh, we saw
other than that,
power fighting through there as well.
Yeah, on the transition, it was a bit of both, but I was trying to get the back end to make the front end go in a bit, but I felt it had a bit too much understeer on that particular corner. But the rest of the lap was pretty decent, I felt. I wouldn't have changed much on the setup in any case.
Well, Bashir, a fantastic drive from you. And as you say, I mean, these conditions are treacherous. to just circulate and make it to the finish line is one thing, but to finish on the podium like you have consistently in the series, man, well done. And that championship is still very much on the table for you, sir. So congratulations on that third place. And thanks again for joining us here. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. And we fanboy out a little bit when you get here. Okay?
Thanks, guys. I appreciate that. Hopefully, I give you a better fight next time.
Yeah, we look forward to it. Our second place, man, and I never thought I'd have to say that, Zahir Essa this time in second position. There was a fire lit under Zahir after he lost that race the last time. I feel like he came back to Monza and just decimated the guys, and now the same thing happened in qualifying today. The same,
do you remember?
Yes. And then the same thing happened in seeding today as well. But he was on the front row of the grid. Zahir Essa. You know what? I still can't believe you're actually human. I've seen mistakes from you for the first time, but is this it now? Are you done for mistakes for the rest of the year? Because that's what I suspect might be the case.
Which one are you referring to?
No, you're not earnest.
There were quite a few.
No, Zaire, for me, there were no mistakes, but this is what you had called a long time ago. You knew Jordan was fast, and you've said you were disappointed that he wasn't in a couple of the races, and now he turned up today. I thought you were quick, really, really fast and drove well, but Jordan just had proper pace in that Audi. Good car in the wet.
Yeah, as soon as I knew it was wet weather settings, I had a feeling that he was going to walk it. The Audi is very stable, so the Porsche is a bit of a nightmare, to say the least. But look, it was manageable. I enjoyed it. It was quite a challenge, but today Jordan was just way too quick.
So for the first time, Marius, for the first time you've had a race on your hands. Is this what you want? Isn't it just better to run off into the distance?
No, this is great. I mean, the qualifying was crazy. So just trying to find every half a tenth. And by the end of it, well, I knew Jordan had the upper hand over a longer distance because the tires on the Porsche by the end of the race were just done, the rear tires. So it was a bit of a drift city. But, other than that, I mean, bit of a lonely race. So
quite interesting to hear what you did, because we chatted to Bash about what they were doing in terms of setup. Did you go with default wet settings, or did you have some time to play?
No, it was no time to play. I also went pretty much default wet because I've never raced in the wet in the game before. Jeez. So it was tricky. I mean, I tried to change things here and there where I could on the fly. It looks like I was the quickest Porsche at the end, so I mean, I must have done something right.
Well, I would imagine you made changes to traction control, to brake bias, but those are the things that you can change in the race, and a 50-minute race is long. Tire pressures, did that come into play at all today?
Not too much. I think I made a mistake on my setup with the brake duct sizes. So I think I had it still on for my qualies trim, and I didn't open them up for the race. So my rears were overheating a bit too much, so I had to keep those in check throughout the race. I'm really tired of this time management story. I wish I could just get it right for once. But even in the wet, I'm time managing. But look, I mean, I couldn't blink that entire race. It was just crazy.
Zaire, listen, a lot of drivers would love to have your terrible time management issues, because you're winning with time management issues, you're second with time management issues, you're third. I mean, come on, seriously. Not a big problem to have, eh?
Race drivers have to complain about something.
Exactly.
So just give it to me, please. Just give me something.
What I can't believe is that you come in second place out of 60 drivers, and it's a shock to everybody. And I mean, it's not the norm. So congratulations, you're still on the podium, you're still in the fight, and clearly one of the most talented guys in this field, if not the most talented guy here. So congratulations, man. You finished the race in what was treacherous conditions, and I'm sure we're going to see you back fighting hard to give Jordan even harder time at the next race.
Yep, thank you. Definitely. See you in the next one.
Yeah. So the young South African Jordan Sheridan getting 45 points in this race, only 3 points difference. It's maybe worth, as you say, Marius, to hang back a little bit and just lose those 3 points.
Yeah, that's what I love, because, I mean, there's not like you have one bad race, and like Taz was saying earlier as well, with the guys able to throw their 2 worst results away, things are still going to get quite interesting. We are halfway through the season now. But yeah, listen, that was just so good for me to have Jordan finally having a full race and a clean race and showing what pace he's really capable of. It was brilliant.
Yeah, well, Jordan's going to be joining us shortly. Here he is now, our winner, Jordan Sherritt. Jordan, you must be so glad to. I can imagine you punching the air as you cross the line, shaking off the last race, shaking off any issues you've had this season. You are a winner, my friend. You won today. Well done.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was a lot of fun, a bit tricky at the beginning. What happened is that in qualifying, it gave you like a lower reading of your fuel. So it was at 3.12, and then in the race, my first 2 laps were like 3.2. So I had to flip and fuel save while trying to keep up the pace, and eventually kind of got to that point where I could basically push a little bit, and the Audi was very, very, very good on its tires, so I could keep consistent throughout the whole race. Yeah. So
please just rub it in for everyone. Just tell everyone that while you were racing in the wet, tricky conditions, you were typing a message to your brother to fuel save.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually worried for him. I was worried for him. I was like, because he obviously didn't know, because he doesn't know the game so well. so I was busy watching my fuel, and I was like, oh shit, so I had to tap to my brother to be like, hey, you need to fuel save. I won't finish the race.
So you actually were doing that while you were driving?
Yes, yeah.
You know what? Bloke's going to hate you even more to smash them all by 10 seconds in conditions like this, and then you're still telling them that you're texting and driving. Please don't text and drive on national roads.
Yeah, it's not good. Yeah.
Jordan, you led start to finish. The Audi's clearly good in these conditions. You're clearly good in these conditions. Tasman was mentioning earlier on that the karting experience in this situation pays off. Was that the case today?
There is an advantage, of course, because you kind of have the real feel. But with this game, they haven't got. I obviously don't mean to bring the physics down of the game, but there's no real wet line. So your wet line is your actual racing line. Although you got to kind of be a little bit more brake earlier, of course. Change your ABS higher. So it's like a yes and a no answer, because I can't really give you it.
But listen. Yeah. Thanks for that, because a lot of us were saying, I mean, in racing conditions like this, it's the guys that find the grip, and the grip often isn't on the racing line. So it's interesting hearing from you, having come out of the race, saying that the game hasn't been able to really simulate that, because I suppose how would it? So you are literally just following the racing line.
Yeah, I mean, so you got to kind of obviously go slow in, and but the cool thing is like the understeer, it's quite real through your actual wheel, so you kind of can, I guess, feel that. So they're very good on that. But obviously, the wet line is wider and cut in, but obviously the dirty rubber doesn't go wide. So I think maybe that's what they need to kind of hopefully do, which will be amazing.
How difficult is it? Because I mean, I was saying, I imagine in conditions like this, and same, with in karting and in race cars too, so much of what you feel is through the seat of your pants. And obviously in the sim rigs, you bolt to the ground, so you don't have that. In wet conditions, that's really what you'd like to feel, what the car is doing. But is that something that you're able to change in terms of the setup that you run?
Yes and no. I mean, obviously it depends what wheel you have. I'm still using a G27, so the feeling is not so great, but I mean, you do get a good feeling, but you mainly actually hear through your ears. You hear what the car's doing, so you hear the understeer, you hear just how the engine is, and you can kind of counter that. Well, that's how I drive. I'm not sure if others are like that, but
it's interesting because it's tough. You just don't have that bums of seat of the pants experience. You just don't have that,
Yeah.
Well, Jordan, what a sensational drive. I've actually got the lap times in front of me, and you set the fastest lap. You got pole. You finished the race first. I mean, that's the treble right there. How are you feeling right now? I mean, what's it like? Tell us what that feels like.
I mean, it is quite relieving after perhaps the luck I've had and maybe my misfortunes and my fault, some of them. So I mean, it kind of pays off, and it makes me want to obviously race harder and obviously get this feeling again for the next one.
Indeed. Yeah. I am sure that you'll be back on the podium at least, Jordan. Well done on that fastest lap. Well done on pole. And wow, man, well done on an exceptional drive. I'm sure that won't be the last we hear from Jordan Sherritt. Our top spot man today, 45 points. Unbelievable stuff. Marius, what are your thoughts so far?
No, listen, this for me was the race that we needed to have. We're halfway through the season, round 6. and it was really good to throw a bit of a curveball the way of the drivers. Hectic conditions, and again we saw a turn up in the pro-ams where a couple of guys came through and surprised us. But in the pros, all of these guys are super fast and was the normal guys that we've come to expect at the top of the pile. But 2 weeks time we go to Barcelona, sunny Barcelona. Jono, that means add rain. I think this is really good for the championship because it kind of mixes things up a little bit, and we want the drivers to start thinking about arriving at a seeding run on a Saturday to certain conditions. Then on the race day, they're very, very different. The guys need to start having some games played with their heads.
Yeah, look, there's a few things we can do. I mean, there's day and night. There's maybe some dusk conditions that we can throw in there. Maybe a sprinkling of rain midway through a race. So yeah, lots to do still for this championship.
I'm picturing Jono now walking around sprinkling rain on the track.
Jono the weatherman. I love it.
Weatherman Jono strikes again. Well, folks, thank you so much for joining us. The next round is Barcelona, and we will be seeing you guys then. Of course, this event could not be possible without Elgato, AMD, and of course Corsair chairs keeping us comfortable. We will see you guys at the next round. Thanks for watching, and what a day. We'll see you in Barcelona.